Hey, folks, welcome to Caching in the Northwest. This is the podcast from the birthplace of geocaching right here in the great Pacific Northwest. Now, it's Thursday at 9 p.m. Pacific. I'm Chris of the Northwest, and we're going to talk about geocaches and geocachers from here and all around the globe. So while you're spending days looking for the Lido deck, we'll be caching in the Northwest.
Tonight, we're talking about geocaching travel adventures with the Landsharkz. We're so glad you're here. Hey, live audience, they want to hear from you too. So jump in, get your comments in the chat. Looking forward to it. I am Wits End. It's time to bring in our traveling tamarind. Some say his clothes clash more than Middle East countries. And others say the only thing he fears is unrequited love. All we know is he's called Land Monkey.
That was very unique.
I just read them.
All right. I don't know if that's what I fear the most, but yeah, it's up there.
Okay.
Up there. All right. Hey, it is a quick reminder that we appreciate the support of our patrons who help to keep the podcast coming each and every week. And, well, geez, right over there beside me is one of our Denali level corporate supporters, the Landsharkz. Hello, Landsharkz.
Hey there.
Do you guys have any special promotional message for this week?
We do. We have a sale on for all of February, 20% off almost everything. Plus, we're doing a really cool gift with purchase promo. All by ourselves. It's not a geocaching affiliated one, but we've got a free trackable tag for every $25 that you spend before shipping and tax. And so if you spend $75, you'll get 3 free trackable tags. Yeah.
Wow. The math checks out. I was checking it while you spoke. Yep.
Good.
Yeah.
All right.
That's 76. It's the same number. And 77 and 78.
Yeah.
79.
We had an
all the way up to 99. Got it. All right.
Yeah. We had a school take advantage of it, and they're getting a lot of trackable tags. They're going to be doing a geocaching promotion.
Awesome.
Nice.
Well, that's a great sale to know about, a great promotion to know about. So definitely check that out. And folks can find that at landsharkz.ca. Our other corporate Denali level sponsor, well, they're not here to speak for themselves, so I will speak for them. That would be Gold Country Geotourism. Remember to visit exploregoldcountry.com to learn more about the geotours and the region. And don't forget to download the app and plan your trip this spring, summer, fall, or hey, how about next weekend? All right. Well, if you want to view what's happening in Gold Country, just have a quick check of the app or the online site at exploregoldcountry.com. And folks, if you want to know more about supporting this here podcast show, well, why don't you head on over and click that Patreon link on the cachingnw.com, a website.
Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
Thank you, Landsharkz. We appreciate having you guys.
Indeed.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
In fact, you took advantage of the next section of the show as well. That's a section we call the glow.
Yep.
Now, you may ask, what is a glow?
What is a glow?
Oh, look at this. They're on it. The glow is the geocaching log of the week. So whether you read it or whether you wrote it, we want to hear about it because great logs simply make geocaching better. You can send an email or a recording in your very own voice to feedback@cachingnw.com. You can call in to 253-693-TFTC. And again, in your very own voice, and show us how you glow. Now, folks, we need your glows, and I thank those who sent in glows in the very last week. I just sent you out your new 2023 glow badge to put on your very own geocaching profile. So if you want one of these exclusive glow badges, send in a glow now.
Ooh.
Looks like that.
Ooh.
Gonna get one.
Yeah. All right. So do the Landsharkz want to read this themselves since it's their glow? Or?
Sure.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I wrote it. I'll read it.
Chris wrote it. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Anything to get out of work for Jim. I like it. I'm impressed.
Yeah. So we were at GC 9P7BV, which is actually a virtual in downtown Vancouver. It's where the Olympic torch, we call it monument, statue,
The torches.
The torches downtown Vancouver. So we were down there last weekend, and so the log was, and I'll give you some context after. While we were visiting downtown and coming to do this virtual, and stumbled across an ocean environment pre-conference event with bands and a big octopus and food trucks and all kinds of fun things. On the way here, a fellow asked us how to get to the Pan Pacific Hotel. So we walked in there. It just turns out he was the environment minister from Madagascar. Turns out he was actually from the environment ministry. He wasn't the minister, but anyway. On his first visit to Canada, he changed planes in Toronto, and it was surprised and very pleased that it was warmer in Vancouver than it was in Toronto. Then Stephen Page started playing at the bandstand. We're going to hang out here for a while. So, and that was it. But basically, we had we were in Vancouver for the evening, and we had one of the sort of day passes for the SkyTrain and bus and all that. So we figured we were sort of done what we were doing in downtown, and figured we had a few hours left in the evening. Figured, why don't we just head down to the waterfront? And sure enough, there was this big conference going on, and there were
big festival.
There was a
stage with bands.
Stage with bands. Stephen Page, he was one of the members of Bare Naked Ladies back in the day. So it was just standing there, and all of a sudden, it's like, I recognize that voice. And it's
it's a distinctive voice for sure.
Very much
oh my goodness, who's that? And he was just getting on the stage, so we stood and listened to him for 45 minutes.
Yeah.
So I would say that was a very nano or micro geocaching travel adventure.
Fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
International nonetheless.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So it was fun time. Good time.
Well, fantastic. See, isn't that great to have a glow red by the person who sent it in?
It throws us all off. We don't know what to do now.
Yeah,
I know. Well, people should phone in, and because that's what happens when people phone in too, right?
exactly. Or record it on your phone and email it in. Either way.
Yeah.
It's okay. You can write it out and read it. You don't have to, worry about coming up with the words on the fly. You figure it out. It's okay. You can even call in 5, 6, 7 times. Do you feel like you've got it right?
I think it's really hard to write words on a fly as well.
Yeah, well, they're small. You don't use big words when you write them on the fly.
Don't write on the wings. The wings they're moving all the time. Like right on
On the thorax, as they say. Use your thesaurus on the thorax.
Wow. There you go. If you want to add something to tonight's chat that isn't maybe bug related, why don't you use the hashtag travel? And of course, you can use the hashtag FATAS to bring up something for the after show, and we'll mention it in the after show. I'm trying to hear it is. And man, we just keep adding hashtags. And of course, we have hashtag podcast baking to let us know what you're cooking this evening. And don't forget hashtag pod. I can't do it. I've run out of hashtags.
Hash blah blah.
Use that one. Hashtag podcast drinking to tell us what you're sipping on tonight.
That's probably the appropriate way to say it if you are podcast drinking.
It depends on how much podcast drinking you've already done.
There you go.
I am drinking water, and yet I still talk like this. Oh, there you go. Who is that? That was UDAC with
Chris is drinking.
Oh yeah,
I lost
UDAC's white wine.
a Y wine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Why not?
Why wine?
Yeah, Chris is drinking too much. Thank you.
All right.
Why wine? That's the other type from red wine.
Yeah.
So not a lot of news tonight. We got a couple things though. First, a reminder: if you and since the Sharks were talking about a virtual cache, a newer one that has been placed in Vancouver, a reminder that if you still have a virtual reward credit sitting in your geocaching bank account, as I do, need to make sure I get that deployed. Time's running out. So pitter patter. I know we don't want to rush it. We want to make it the perfect virtual cache because we only get one shot at it. So time to, if you've been pondering it over, time to run the idea through with some friends and get it done.
What is the last date?
Brian, what's the last date? You would know.
I think it's the end of February.
No, he's just
I want to say it's the end of the month. Yeah.
I thought it was like early March, but yeah.
Or maybe you've got till March 3rd or something. It's definitely coming up. We have
coming.
one to use as well. We've been saving ours, thinking we might use it on a tour, travel somewhere if we needed to get a souvenir in a country. But now we're back home and we've still got it to use. But we have a plan.
There you go. Don't use it on the torch. That's already taken.
That's right.
We won't.
Okay.
I think that was Kev McDee's.
No,
Birch
it was
Grove, was it?
No, Ravens Rock.
Oh, Ravens Rock.
I think,
Okay.
I think,
Ravens Rock.
I think, wasn't it? I can't
Yeah,
remember.
maybe it was
Can't remember.
Ravens Rock.
All right. Well, easy enough to check.
Hey, there's more news. There's it's also the Signals Labyrinth has recently started up the next
The last
next
one, is it?
phase. Is it the
Yeah.
last one?
Last phase. It's the last phase, I think.
Yep. He's got to escape the dragon before it's too late.
Yes.
Or he's a toasty frog.
That's right. I think dragons like frog legs.
Hmm.
We're not supposed to say that, are we?
You
I
can
know
say
Doc
whatever you want.
Hoppa
It's your
does.
podcast.
Doc Hoppa's French fried frog legs.
Doc Hoppers. That's awesome. Nice Muppet
Oh,
movie.
what coaster came through for us? Thank you, research department. It says the virtual cache is part of a limited release of virtuals created between March 1st, 2022 and March 1st, 2023.
Wow. Yep.
So,
So
end
not
of the
many-
month plus 1 day,
Yeah, so that's really late February.
February 29th.
Yeah.
But the reviewers needed in the queue 2 weeks before? No, I don't
No.
think so. No, that's events.
That's okay.
Yeah. So we got 19 days left.
Cool.
Get
No
it in
pressure.
there. No pressure.
No pressure.
Just don't screw it up.
That's right.
'Cause you got one shot.
It's virtual. How can you go wrong?
Right? All right.
All the pressure.
All the pressures. All right. Hey, Chris, do you have any news for us?
Yes. WSGA elections are coming up. It's election season for the WSGA. They're looking for candidates who are interested in serving the board in all positions for the 2023-2024 board. The tenure begins the 1st of April and runs through March 31st, 2024. All positions are open, though we have many of our current members returning for another year. If you're interested in a chapter representative position, you're required to reside in the chapter you want to serve. Now, executive committee positions, that's president, vice president, secretary, and treasurer, are open to all Washington state residents, regardless of where you live in the state. If you're interested in any position, please contact them via their website. That's wsgaonline.org.
Yes.
Very handy to know because I can never remember that online part. And
Right.
I always go to the Washington State Golfing Association.
Yeah, and who cares
Yes.
about golf?
And that's not the same thing. Though you
Surely
may,
not.
you may have a chance to, get on their board.
I suppose.
Go do their 7 geo tours. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Keep getting
All right.
stuck at the 19th Geo Tour.
Nicely played.
All right, well, go ahead. You're
Last
saying?
show, we talked a little bit about Chat GPT, and, I played with it some more, and I asked it to write a limerick for caching in the Northwest, and this is what it came up with.
Okay. I haven't looked at this yet. Let's see what it says. It says there once was a podcast from the Northwest with hosts who love geocaching, as you'll see. They roamed far and wide with stories to tell of caches found, adventures, and tales from the trail. With laughter and wit, they share all the news of geocachers, caches, and caching in the blues. And whether it's rain or sunshine, they're always on track to bring the best geocaching stories back. So if you love geocaching and want to be in the know, just tune into Caching in the Northwest and let the good times flow. With laughter and learning and tales of their finds, it's a podcast that's sure to leave you smiling every time.
So how much data did you need to feed in to get this? Like you couldn't have just said, give
That
me a
was-
limerick for caching in the Northwest.
That was it, exactly.
How would he
Really?
gather
Wow.
all that information?
Yeah.
And how did it have your home address in there?
Well, yeah, I edited that out, didn't I? Oh, yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, Jim didn't read it, but yeah.
So does it scrape your whole site looking for information and then create a limerick?
It must.
I have no idea. I asked it, I had to write a poem and a haiku and other things just to see what it could do. And
Huh.
Gia sometimes she says, just FYI, that is not a limerick, which is a fair point.
yeah, exactly.
But it is rhyming couplets.
Consider the source.
Mhm.
It's a creative literary piece.
There you go.
It's a little long for a limerick.
Indeed. All right. Well, on that note,
Yeah, on that note, we're through with all the news, the limericks that aren't limericks, and we're back to the guests that are guests, and we're so glad you're here, Landsharkz. Welcome back to the podcast. And should we add welcome home as well, because you have been out traveling again.
We have.
We do that.
I hear you were someplace warmer than the Northwest at the moment.
Yeah, we were snorkeling in the Caribbean and walking in historic towns like San Juan, Puerto Rico. We went on a 2-week Caribbean cruise with a group of geocachers and visited lots of islands. Like
We went to the Bahamas,
Grand
Puerto
Turk.
Rico, Turks and Caicos,
Right.
Dominican Republic, 2 stops in Mexico. That was
And
Cozumel and
Costa
Maya. And then Roatan in the Honduras and Belize City in Belize.
wow,
That was all based out of Fort Lauderdale was the stop point.
that is quite the destination.
Yeah, we like
destinations.
souvenirs. We're souvenir hounds.
Indeed. Wow, that's a good way
Yeah, I
to
was
do
going to
it.
say how many countries came out of that?
we had 2 new ones. 3. We
3
had
for us.
Turks and Caicos, Belize, and Honduras were new for us. And some people, I think, got like 8 countries.
Wow.
I think 7, 8 if you count the
If
U.S.
you hadn't been to Florida, that
That's not a country.
wouldn't have
Florida's
been.
not.
But you get one for the state.
Maybe 8 souvenirs, but
Yeah.
7 countries. Yeah.
Very cool. Do you have maybe 1 or 2 highlights from that trip you want to share with our listeners?
Sure.
Sure.
I get a couple. I think that for me, one of the top things is what I would call the travel family. We've got a lot of people that have been cruising with us for quite a number of years now, and I would say they're good friends. They're all friends with each other, and it actually feels like a bit of a family. Newcomers are more than welcome, but at the same time, it's a very comfortable and relaxing place to be with these folks. They're a great bunch of people. So that would be, I guess, number one is just spending time with our friends from all over.
Well,
Mostly Canada and the U.S. But
there was a lot of new people on this trip too.
Yep.
There was a lot of new ones, and everyone got along, and it was like happy hour all the time. Well, yeah, it was really fun. A really cool thing that happened when we were in Costa Maya, we went to the Mayan ruins. We were off the ship early. They wanted us like off the ship super early, and we were groaning and moaning. But we were we were on the first group.
That hurt my back. I was groaning and moaning more than anybody.
So we got to the ruins that we were visiting, and we were the very first ones there. We were the very first tour bus to pull into this massive parking lot, and we went down the trails, and we were at all these incredible ruins through the trails. There was a bunch of them. It was like the city of ruins, and we got to take photos and be there without anybody else there, just our group. And then as
once we got towards the end,
3/4 of the way through, other people started to kind of come in. And by the time we got back to the beginning, it was just like pandemonium, people everywhere. Mm-hmm. And we actually went past the first ruin on the way out, and there was just so many people there, you wouldn't have been able to get a decent picture. Yeah. That was really, really cool. And the guide we had was actually an archaeologist, I think, but he could really he could really explain it to people easily well. And so we had a fantastic tour guide there too.
Yeah, awesome. Another fun thing was in Honduras, we went to a place that rescues sloths and monkeys that need rescuing, and we got to hold a sloth, and sloths are the coolest things ever. The monkeys were pretty fun too. They said take everything out of your pockets, and they really meant it because they reach down your shirt, and I had one monkey on my shoulder reaching down my shirt, and then I could feel in my pockets there was another one going deep down looking for stuff. In
That's how they fund the refuge.
Yeah.
It was
Like they had those cubby holes outside. Usually you just put your shoes there, but instead it was like basically empty your pockets, take off like anything that you don't want a monkey to run off with, put it in this cubby and you'll get it later. But they said, don't worry about hats or glasses because we can get those back for you if they take them.
and they did.
And they did, yeah.
Yeah.
That was a lot of fun.
Yeah. And then what else?
We went swimming with stingrays and sharks in Belize.
In Belize. That was a lot of fun.
That was really cool.
Well,
and it was
You are
shallow.
the sharks.
Well, it was kind of everybody else
sharks.
got to swim with sharks and sharks. The sharks, we just got to swim with ourselves and the sharks.
That would be really cool. So
they were nurse sharks. They were so many that they were literally, and this wasn't in a pen or anything. This was out in a coral reef, but out in the wild. And there were so many sharks and rays that they were literally kind of just swimming around and bumping up against you. They were all over the place.
And you weren't concerned about the stings on the stingrays or anything?
No, the thing is, if you don't bother them, they don't bother you. You're just there and swimming around, and if you try and pet them or step on one or something like that, then sure, maybe. But basically, you just kind of watch, and they just swim around, and it's totally.
In that area, it was kind of shallow. It was like, chest height. And they said, if you're in an area where you're walking, so there was areas that were deeper and areas that were shallower. If there was an area where you're walking, they said, slide your feet so you don't step on a manta ray or a stingray. So you don't step on a stingray. Slide your feet in the sand so you don't step on one.
Right.
But I got to pet a nurse shark. One of the guides went and she just kind of grabbed one. They're pretty docile. Brought it over, grabbed it by the tail, and here you know. So I got to touch a shark, and that was a pretty cool thing. I didn't realize how cool it would be till I did it and was like, oh my gosh, I just touched a shark. Holy doodle.
So
I hear they're very smooth one way and kind of rough the other.
Yes. And a tiny bit rough, like not as smooth as I thought it would be. Just like a textured leather.
Okay.
Yeah. And that was very cool.
Yeah. And a previous cruise we had tried to get into Turks and Caicos, but the cruise ship wasn't able to dock because of the wind.
I recall that.
Yeah. And so that was always a kind of a disappointment. However, this time around we were able to get into Turks and Caicos, and I actually was able to reconnect with the tour guide that was going to do the tour on the first one, and they gave us a great tour of the island, and it was a lot of fun. Took us to their they have a little beach cabana place where we had lunch and a couple drinks and went swimming there too.
And they own it. The guide owns the tour company, and that the cabana on the beach is on property right beside his house.
Oh wow!
So
nice.
Did we?
They're so excited.
We have frozen sharks. The water must be cold.
Must be.
Yeah. So that's very cool. And he's a guy named Doug. Yeah, he's going to look after it. So we'll send him stuff if we need to. But he'll be totally cool with looking after it.
You broke up. We lost you for a little bit. We assume that you're maybe talking about you placed a cache there.
Yes,
we did. We placed a cache at the Sunset Cabana that was owned by the people that did the tour. And they asked us if we could hide a cache on their property.
It's kind of like the cache that shall not be named.
He's like, can you hide one on my property? So he ran back to his house and he came out with a sandwich container. And I happened to have a logbook and a pencil and a sharpener and some trade items. So popped that in. And we had 5 reviewers with us who posted a comment somewhere to say that this was for real, legit. And we went into the normal review queue and eventually got published.
Very cool.
And there were on Grand Turk, one of the stops, there's rogue donkeys. Rogue donkeys?
Rogue.
Yeah, I'd say rogue. It was kind of kind of interesting. There's a guy at the lighthouse at one end of the island. There's a guy sitting there and he's selling carrots, and you can buy a carrot and feed the donkeys. But at the same time, you feed one donkey and the donkey behind gets jealous, so it comes over, and then the donkey you're feeding starts kicking the first donkey. They're quite violent, actually. I was surprised how violent they are. And one of our cruisers almost got knocked over by one of the donkeys that was getting. He petted the donkey, and the donkey behind him got upset. So then they started kicking each other.
Donkeys do.
It just felt a bit of risky business there. So we kind of they kept saying, "Stay away from the back of the donkeys." But here, we'll sell you a carrot to feed them, but don't go near the back of the donkeys.
It's that donkey unrequited love that I fear. Yeah.
That's right.
Oh, this sounds like quite a trip. Now, can you go to Turks without going to Caicos?
Yes.
That's one thing I've always wondered. Okay. I've always wondered.
Yeah, we were actually on Grand Turk was the island we were on, which was one of the islands. I don't think it's the biggest island, but anyways, it's one of the islands.
Now, how many geocachers were on this ship and on this trip, and how many donkeys did they all bring back?
Yeah, well, we all kind of got scared of the donkeys, so we left them behind. In total, there were 57 of us.
Wow.
Yeah, but they weren't all geocachers. Most of them were geocachers. There were a few snuggle muggles, as Helen calls them, partners who are not non-geocaching partners, but they join in with most things. For the most part, it's not geocache. It's finding a few geocaches, really appreciating the place that you're at, enjoying the food and the scenery, and maybe some guys did some sailing in the Bahamas, some Hobie Cat sailing, and of course there was snorkeling
and twice,
all kinds of exploring and stuff. So it's really about the place and a little bit of geocaching. In some instances, there's not a lot of geocaches in some places, so we really make a point of going to the geocaches. So in Honduras, for example, we arranged with the tour driver, because the places we were going were not actually near geocaches, with the exception of one right in the port. So we actually showed them where they were, and we arranged to go to a couple and then do the rest of the excursion activities. So 57 people. It was a good crowd.
Well, it sounds amazing. Quite the adventure. But if I know you guys, you're not just going to sit around. You've got more adventures planned, I would bet. Where might you be headed next?
In April, we're heading to Europe. We're doing a Mediterranean cruise out of Civitavecchia, which is just about 50 minutes west of Rome on the coast. And it goes to Sicily, goes to Naples, it goes to Tunisia, so in Africa. So that'll be the very first time we go to Africa for geocaching or for anything. Mm-hmm. And it goes to Spain, goes to 3 or 4 stops in Spain. Palma Mallorca, which is an island just off of Spain, and it goes to Valencia and Seville, so 2 oranges. Barcelona, and then down to Gibraltar and Lisbon, and then up to 2 places in France, and then it finishes in Rotterdam. So that's April.
Does it finish in Rotterdam or Amsterdam?
It's changing. It changes every 5 minutes.
It changes every 5 minutes. It's changed. Last week when we looked, it was finishing in Rotterdam.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah. It was finishing in Amsterdam. Now it's finishing in Rotterdam. We'll see how this evolves.
It was Istanbul. Now it's Constantinople.
Yeah. Except those are the same locations.
Yeah.
Before the cruise on April 22nd, I think we're starting out in Florence. Actually, we wanted to see Florence, and we want to go to San Marino, which is a little micro country. So we're doing an optional add-on for anyone that wants to join us, to join us for 3 days in Florence and then like a day and a half in San Marino. And there'll be a bus taking us from one to the other, and then from San Marino to the port, and then the night before, and then we'll get on the ship the next day.
Is it in a juniper?
There.
Is the micro in a juniper or a cedar? No.
It's in Italy.
Okay.
It's in Italy. Yeah. So that's April.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. CRS98 asked, the missus said she would be interested in a future cruise. When do you want to do the Panama Canal?
Yeah, good question. We actually did one just before COVID that went through the Panama Canal. It was actually through the canal, through the locks, and then turned around and came back out the locks again. It wasn't a one side to the other type.
And went to Panama City.
Yeah, but there was an excursion to Panama City on the West Coast. And so while Panama is definitely on the in our sights for a future cruise, mostly because we would be looking at doing something that's got more Central American countries involved in it.
Yeah, we'd like to go through the canal and then up the coast, the west coast of Central America.
Yeah, so exactly when that's going to happen, we're not sure. We've got a couple more cruises or a couple more trips booked, which we'll get to in a second. And then after that, that's when other things are going to fit in. But we got a few different options.
We have some really amazing things that we're looking at doing after the ones we have currently scheduled.
Yeah, so the one Hal mentioned is the Mediterranean with Mediterranean Europe with a little bit of Africa, and that's coming up in April, May. And then in the fall, we're going to Ireland. In September, we're going to Ireland, and we're doing a bus tour of Ireland. Usually the trips are associated with a cruise. This one is just strictly a bus tour. It basically does a loop of Ireland, starts in Dublin, and it's a little shy of 2 weeks, and it's basically a full loop of the country, and we'll be getting making sure we're going to all the provinces. So we'll get all the souvenirs there are to be had in Ireland, and at the same time, we'll be going to some of the major sort of tourist highlight type places. Yeah,
Cliffs of Moher, Giant's Causeway, the first European geocache, which is hidden in Bray, about 40 minutes, I think, south of Dublin.
The Aran Islands.
The Titanic Museum, I believe,
in Belfast.
In Belfast.
Yeah.
So lots of cool places.
Yeah. And then about this time next year, we'll be heading off we'll be flying down to Santiago, Chile. And we'll be doing a few days in Santiago, and then a flight to Buenos Aires, and then across to Montevideo in Uruguay. And that is just a short piece that precedes an Antarctic cruise that we're going to be doing. And the Antarctic cruise the actual cruise group gets together in Buenos Aires, flies to Ushuaia on the southern tip of Argentina, and then the cruise goes out of Ushuaia, goes down to Antarctica, of course, and then up to the Falkland Islands before heading back to Ushuaia, and then flight back to Buenos Aires, where everybody takes off from there. So that should be kind of cool. Looking forward to that one.
Very adventurous.
I think there's about 8 spots left on Antarctica. For the Ireland and Antarctica, we're capping them at Ireland at about 40 people and Antarctica at 30, just so that we don't have huge groups in those types of environments. And with the buses on Ireland, we don't want to have more than one bus. So Ireland's probably got I think both of them have about 8 to 10 spots left on each cruise yet, or each trip, Antarctica and Ireland.
Surprised there's any left on the Ireland trip. That's good.
It is. It's starting to fill up.
Every now and then, Tara will get a rush of people, adding on. And then the Mediterranean one coming up in April, there's still space on that if anyone wants to join us. I think we have 40 or 50 people so far. I think I'd have to look.
Yeah.
40, 47, 48, somewhere in there. So there's space on that one. If anyone's, got some time off and figures they'd like to join us, that's definitely wide open, because there's no limits until the ship sells out the cabins.
Yeah.
There you go. Well, these all sound like amazing adventures for sure. Now, you talked a little bit about this, but in general, how much geocaching can someone expect to do on one of these trips?
So we think it's important that people have the holiday that they want to have, but at the same time, if you want to get off the ship in these places and just head off by yourself or with a couple of friends and just geocache, that's fine. However, I think a lot of people really enjoy going on the excursions with the group. and there's a lot of camaraderie and a lot of people have a lot of fun with those. And so it depends. In some respects, it'll depend how long we're in a place. So if we're in Lisbon, for example, we won't be doing a group excursion in Lisbon. There are loads of geocaches, easily accessible, and the ship is going to dock right downtown. And it's a safe place to be, and it's a fairly easy place to get around. Western Europe is pretty comfortable for most people. So it's the type of place, just go off, explore on your own. And we'll get together with some people, and people will go off in little groups and things like that. Other places, like
we're doing the same in Barcelona. Everyone's
doing the same thing in Barcelona. Other ones, we've got excursions planned, which are with this is a Holland America cruise, and the excursions are private excursions, so they will just be the geocaching group. So we will be working with the tour operators to make sure that if we're there all day and we're close to we're close to a downtown area, and the tour is sometimes maybe a short tour, just an introduction to the city, we may not do some geocaching on that because there's lots of opportunity to go geocaching afterwards. However, when we're in Tunisia, for example, there are not a lot of geocaches, and there's certainly not going to be any within walking distance of the cruise port by the looks of it. So we will have a private excursion. We're going to go to a place where there are geocaches and a lot of history and everything also, and we'll be working with the tour operator to make sure that we stop and get a couple of geocaches on a trip like that. So it varies from place to place. But as I said earlier, it's as much about the place and the history and the food and the people as it is about geocaching. But we definitely, as I said, we're souvenir hounds, and we don't want to leave a place without finding a couple of caches.
There's always people who want to go off and do their own thing, and they might get a taxi, or they may get a small group together, and they may have a goal, like they may be puzzles they've solved, like puzzle caches that they've solved, or
the oldest cache in the place.
Oldest cache and somewhere is within reach, so they might want to go and get that. And so we definitely support people in doing that and making the trip their own. We never want anyone to go home and go, oh, I went on a Landsharkz trip instead of doing what I really wanted to do. So if you really don't want to come on our excursion and you'd rather just, go do something else, and it could be book a different shore excursion, but from the ship, we've had people do that as well. If we were going off to do, tour A, some others may say, you know what, I really want to do tour B. I've always wanted to do that. Then we say, go for it, do it, because, you got to make the holiday your own as well. So you're not locked into what we're doing. We just kind of put that out there as a suggestion, really.
Yes.
Because here's where we're going. And this, so it's out there as an option. If you want to hang out with the group all the time, you can do that. And the folks that don't hang out with the group and do their own thing, we always have a great time chatting with them over dinner or in the lounges in the evening about how they spent their day, what they did, because it's a whole new adventure that we get to hear about. That they went somewhere else.
Sounds
Nice.
great. So if they have choices, they can make their own plans for shore excursions and stuff.
Yeah.
If they haven't been to a specific location, maybe they want to spend a whole lot more time in one location or spend time where you are. The bus trips are great. You can see all kind of stuff, but sometimes you feel like, boy, I wish I had more time here. Can they extend their journey and stay behind in one spot? Or I don't know how all that works, but I want to see a place in more depth. I'm guessing.
Time.
Oh,
there we go. You came back.
The cruise line always, as you're leaving, it'll say, all aboard at 4 p.m. or all aboard at 5 p.m. So, as long as you're back on board, you can, you could do our excursion with us. And if we're done at noon, then you can go off and do your own thing all afternoon and just get back to the ship before they leave the dock.
Yeah, cruises they're a great way to get a taste of a lot of places. I would say so we really enjoy this, obviously. We do lots of this. Where we spent a block of time, a week, 2 weeks in a location. And when you do that, you really get to know the people and the place and the culture, and you just sort of get to immerse yourself in that. And so what we have found is that the cruises, you go to a few places and you visit some and you go, I'm never coming back here again. This place bites. And then you go somewhere else and you go, oh, wow, this is amazing. I'd love to come back here and spend a couple of weeks. And so it's a great way to get a taste of it. And then what a lot of people do is at the end of the cruise, they'll they've actually planned to not come back the day the cruise is finished, and they'll spend time traveling around Europe or whatever it might be, and sometimes before the cruises as well.
Yeah, sometimes people get off one ship and then they spend a couple of days and get on another ship and do another cruise. One couple actually after the Caribbean cruise went to chat with the airline at the desk, and on a spontaneous thing they booked a flight to Cuba on Southwest Airlines. They said they got 3 flights a day, and they hopped on a plane and went to Cuba for a few days. So I'm guessing they didn't have a return flight to Canada yet, but they're back now. Yeah,
That's awesome.
That was really cool.
So we talked. I think you talked a little bit about the angle I'm thinking of Jim's question as well, and definitely, as you said, it's a great way to get a taster of various different countries, and as you said, souvenirs for each of those countries. But what about so you've got a kind of a pre-planned itinerary with the cruise, but are there options to extend on either end of that holiday as well?
The formal options through
with us or separately,
or either.
The formal options with us. So the Danube cruise we did in the fall, we actually had an optional add-on at the end where a little over half of
38 people.
Yeah, so a little over half the people that were on the Danube cruise with us stayed with us for a couple of days in Bucharest and then flew to Istanbul, and we spent 3 days in Istanbul with the group. So we had some tours planned and so on, but in both those places. And then, as Alma was mentioning, on the Mediterranean cruise coming up, there's a pre-cruise section where we have Florence and San Marino. So
I know people are doing,
and then of course people can do their own thing as well before or after as well.
There's people doing post-cruise stuff after the Mediterranean cruise, and people have told us that they're driving. They're going to rent a car. They're going to go to Belgium. They're going to, Luxembourg, Germany. They're going to be driving around afterwards. So a lot of people make their own post-cruise plans. And the cool thing about cruising with people that you've cruised with before, after you've joined us the first time, then you get to know everybody. And so sometimes people will, coordinate group things 4 people rent a car and, do things together after cruises or before cruises. So that works well.
Nice. Now, do you have a lot of repeat cruisers? A lot of people that are coming back time after time?
Yes.
And that's what makes up that family, I would say, that some people actually think of it as, this is my family. This is the people I travel with. These are my friends. I love, they just love being with this group. So, but there's a core group of people that do a lot of that, but then we also have lots and lots of new people, and that core group kind of
it grows, it evolves.
Yeah.
And and there's ones that don't want to miss anything, so they have FOMO.
That's funny.
Yeah.
So, you're going to some interesting places.
Yep.
Are there any considerations, maybe limitations that geocachers should be aware of? I'm thinking Antarctica isn't for everyone.
I would say Antarctica is not for everyone. The cruise line that we're using is Hurtigruten. It's a Norwegian cruise line.
And it's just fun to say.
It's fun to say. Once you practiced it a few times, it just flows. It's really good. So Hurtigruten actually has a medical questionnaire that you have to fill out beforehand. We haven't got a copy of it yet. We're trying to get a copy early on so that people can be aware of what's involved. I think the primary reason you need to be a little bit mobile because you'll be getting in and out of Zodiacs and doing some shore stuff in Antarctica. And we're also going to be a long way from significant health services. So if you're on the verge of a heart attack or some serious sort of mobility issues, then it's probably not the place for you. At the same time, all of the other trips that we do are generally pretty easy, but the shore excursions with regards to Ireland, there's going to be a little bit of walking. If you're the type of person that can't keep up with a group of sort of average walkers, then you may want to think twice about Ireland, and with the other ones, maybe choose excursions that don't have a lot of exertion. And we're not usually picking the high exertion excursions. However, we did some snorkeling ones in the Caribbean this last time round, which
Yeah, there was a lot of people that had never snorkeled before that came on
Yeah.
the snorkeling one and had an absolute blast. So they were
Nice.
retirees. Some of
Yeah.
them were even retirees, and they were snorkeling for the first time in their lives, and they just had a
Wow.
blast underwater. Yeah.
So
that was
you
what we
didn't,
create.
you didn't, for instance, jog to the top of a Mayan pyramid?
No. Oh,
No,
I
we
did.
did.
Actually, I
Yeah.
did go up those steps, didn't I? There was 3 sets of steps you could go up: the easy steps, the average steps, or the harder steps. And I went up the harder steps, but there was options. You didn't have to
that
go
was
up.
the
You could
steps that
stay
the
at the
Mayans
bottom.
used to throw their
Right.
virgins off.
As one does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
These European trips, there's lots of cobblestones. There's uneven terrain. There's, narrow streets. There's staircases. There's,
Yep.
but there's options if you don't have great mobility. There is options.
I think one of the things that is definitely, I think people from North America need to be aware of when traveling to Europe and doing these kinds of excursions is the cobblestone streets can be tough to navigate, especially if it rains.
Oh,
They
yeah.
can be tough to navigate, especially exactly. There were some in Italy that were steep and they had like this little thin coating of algae on them, and they were like ice when it rained. It was really
There was
something.
a handrail. We used it.
Oh,
But it was really steep. Some of those hilltop villages in Italy. It was just Chris and I. We
Tuscany.
didn't have a group.
But yeah, absolutely. The a little bit unlike here, the notion of, oh my goodness, there's a little dent in the sidewalk. we better fix it from a liability because of liability. That's not even a thing over there. It's
No.
so sorry. The sidewalk's 400 years old, and it's like it's like up and down and up and down. Sucks to be you if you can't.
That's right.
You better just
Be careful.
be aware, be careful,
Yeah,
and
watch
and
your feet.
and it's generally fine. But
Yeah. If you ever just suck it up and have a good time.
The ships have the big, like when we were on Holland America, they actually have ships, doctors, nurses. They have a medical center. They have like a little mini hospital there. So it's not like you're far away from health services. Antarctica will have, some sort of health services
on the ship,
on the ship, and in Hurtigruten has stuff. Holland America has, or Princess had even more. So that's available. Like if you're, you come down with something or you fall or get a stomach ache, there's services there, and they can prescribe and give you everything you need.
That said, things like travel medical insurance are really important.
They're vital.
And you might want to make sure you don't want to just say, oh yeah, you don't want to be nonchalant about it. You want to really make sure that you've got good coverage. Just because you got a credit card that said you got insurance, like look into it and understand what that insurance actually is, and make sure you've got the right travel insurance and things like that covered. So if you do get in trouble, that you've got something to assist you financially, because it can get expensive real fast, as I'm sure people know.
If you have really, really good travel insurance on your credit card, you need to use that credit card to book the trip if you want to use that travel insurance.
Oh,
That was, I actually phoned one time and spoke to them and said, okay, what if? And then they said, and the number one thing is I had to book my flights with that credit card to be able to use that insurance.
it seems obvious when you say it, but it's one of those things you need to know.
Yeah.
If you have insurance on a credit card, or you have insurance through work and it says, oh, we cover you for travel, it doesn't hurt to, call them and run some scenarios by them and say, if this happens, will it be covered? If this happens, will it be covered?
Good tip.
Yep.
It sounded like you had excellent medical care on your last trip. I mean, even for aquatic creatures. I mean, you were talking about the nurse shark.
Yes.
So the nurse shark, and for the first time ever, I actually made use of the medical facilities on the ship. I hurt my back. That happens occasionally, and it was kind of painful after a couple of days still. And so I went and saw them, and they dosed me up with a little bit of kind of just general diagnosis, and dosed me up with a bunch of drugs, and that kept me going for the last couple of days. But what was surprising to me was, I guess I shouldn't be surprised, but the quality of the medical service, they're highly qualified and professional, and it was just a good experience, very positive experience. Yeah.
Good.
Very good. Glad you came home well from that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So people say, hey, I can deal with cobblestone streets and I want to see this, and it sounds like a great group of people. How do they do it? What's the process? How does somebody sign up for a Landsharkz geocaching adventure?
There's links on our website. We have an agent we work with for all of our groups, and she block books the group space on all these. So we've got cabins held, and her name is Tara Bradley, and her company is Bradley Travel and Tours. Her email is tbradley@tpi.ca.
Okay.
So you get a hold of Tara, send her an email, give her a call.
Information about the cruises, including Tara's contact info, is all on our travel website, which is travel.landsharkz.ca. And it is a requirement to book through Tara to be part of the group. We can't. So the things like group excursions and stuff like that is it is a requirement to be part of the group, and you can only be part of a group like for things like dining and stuff like that, where we have an area where we'll dine, our group will be able to dine together. You can only be, from the cruise line's point of view, you can only be considered part of that group and eligible to be in that part of, with our group in the dining room, eligible to be on those shore excursions if you're part of the group. And the only way you can be part of the group is to be booked into that group by the travel agent who is doing that set of bookings, and that's Tara.
Okay.
So
Tara, you can't just say, "Oh, I'll just take care of myself and I'll meet you guys." No. I mean, you could bump up with everybody on the ship, but
you could, but you will definitely be missing out on some stuff. And so it's definitely you want to be booking through Tara to make everybody's life easier. And Tara's really, really good. She can also book flights and help make all the arrangements come together without any issue. And booking flights and stuff through her, basically, she'll get a commission from the airline, but it doesn't cost you any more than it would to book the flight in any other way.
Yeah.
She'll often have you arrive at the airport with people from, she'll coordinate that the people from different parts of North America will maybe all arrive in Florence around the same time so they can share a transfer to the hotel. So that's good too. She does a lot of that sort of coordination, and she helps people with other trips as well. Like if somebody, right now, one of the ladies who cruised with us a few years ago, a couple of times, and she's in Fiji right now. She got Tara to book it for her. So yeah, she's
and Tara will actually be on the Mediterranean cruise coming up.
No, is she?
I think so.
Tara's parents are going to be on the Mediterranean cruise.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if Tara's coming yet. She's still thinking about it.
It's like, do I really want to be hanging out with all those geocachers? I don't know.
I talk to them a lot. They're kind of strange.
Yeah. So if a person goes to the Landsharkz travel website and finds one that they want, and they get Tara's contact info and get signed up, and so they're all signed up, they're ready to go, what kinds of things between buying the tickets, getting signed up, and actually leaving and for the airport, what kind of things should people be doing to prepare for the trip in between?
I think some of the most important things, travel insurance is one thing we talked about. You want to really make sure that you're covered with regards to travel insurance. Another one is your passport. International travel, obviously you have to have a passport, but passports need to be good for a while. What they do, a lot of countries will assume that or they'll ask the question, what happens if you get sick and you get stuck here for for a few months? Your passport needs to be valid beyond the length of your trip. So sometimes they won't, you can't even travel with a passport that's not valid for 6 months beyond the end of your travel date. So you want to make sure you got a passport and it's got lots of valid time left on it. Good idea to do a little bit of research with regards to things like the weather, what's typical weather where you're going, so that you kind of get an understanding what type of clothing to bring.
Some people are more comfortable if they check with their doctor or a health clinic on any immunizations they might need if they're going anywhere.
Yep.
Anyway, that's just put it out there that some people feel more comfortable getting immunizations. I know some people did before I went on the Danube cruise. There were some people that felt more comfortable being, immunized for some things that were prevalent in those countries.
Another thing is understanding COVID rules where you're going. The world has changed a little bit now from 3 or 4 years ago. For the most part, right now you can travel, and it's kind of like COVID never happened, except that it did, and it does. So your travel insurance, again, you can actually get COVID insurance. And we actually know of a case where this was really ended up being required. It was with Helen's parents.
My parents, yeah.
And but one of them got COVID a couple of days before they were supposed to board a ship. They weren't able to board, and they really kind of got stuck for a little while
in Barcelona.
In Barcelona, there's worse places to be stuck. But anyways, they weren't able to do their cruise. So understanding what happens if you get COVID, not necessarily, you may need Medicaid or may need hospitalization. That's not as common now, but at the same time, you very likely could be stuck. And in some countries, they still require a quarantine if you actually are test positive. So you got to just understand what the situation is and make sure you have insurance coverage for.
And read up on the dress code for the countries and where you're going to be traveling. So if you are a woman, you might want to bring a scarf. It's nice to throw over your shoulders if it's cool, or if it's hot, you want to protect yourself from the sun. But sometimes when we were in Istanbul, we were in and out of mosques, and I was constantly pulling it up over my hair, tucking it in, because you need to have your hair covered. And there's hair cover police waiting at the door.
And they'll let you know, man. They'll let you know, too. They'll scream at you.
So the ladies are getting, so you cover your hair. So if you just throw a sarong or something in your bag, if you're going to be going to places where you might need to, have more modesty or cover your hair.
And sometimes you're touring some places of worship. In some areas, you're not supposed to wear shorts, or ladies are not supposed to have their shoulders uncovered and things like that. So. And
guys shouldn't wear shorts, aren't allowed to wear shorts in places. Yeah. So it's just good idea to have a variety of clothes and read up on the dress codes and any cultural things that might need to be aware of. There's one country where you're never allowed to turn your back on Buddha. Where was that? I was reading up on it. One of our future trips one day, we're going to need to know that you don't turn your back on a Buddha.
He's dead, though. I mean, is he going to say anything?
I don't know, but that was one of the things.
I don't know. Maybe he's like the monkeys.
Might have been Singapore.
Singapore, anyway. Don't spit in Singapore. You get lashed.
So, it's a good idea just to read up on a country to make sure that you don't accidentally do something that could offend the locals, that at home is totally normal.
Be respectful of the culture, like understand the key aspects of the culture that you're visiting, and be respectful of it. Yeah.
In some cultures, you might think, oh man, that's not right. They treat women like that, or they would force this or do that. But I mean, you're there, not here. So you just absorb it, take it in, behave yourself. Don't speak out. Don't speak out. Don't try and push your values on them as such. Just be, as you say, be respectful of where you are, and
be open
and
to
just take it in and then carry on.
Yeah. Let me speak as an American. Don't be the ugly American, right? That expects the world to bend to your culture because that's the way you see it. That's not how the world works.
Yeah. And I think one of the wonderful things about travel is that you do get to see how other people live and how other cultures. And I think it makes you more tolerant and more accepting to other people. And anyway, I think that's a very positive, wonderful thing about traveling.
Yeah.
Opens your mind.
You get to somewhere and you talk to somebody, and you see what they're doing, and you realize these are just people like you and me, except they got a slightly different way of life. But they're just us. They're just us with
a way cooler accent than we do. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
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 Now I'm sure, with all the people you've taken on cruises, you get asked 1,000,001 questions. Are there any questions that you get asked on a regular basis about cruising that we haven't talked about tonight?
I'd say one of them is SIM cards. People travel and they're interested in how can they connect with their phones. And a lot of phones now have eSIMs where you actually don't have to buy a physical SIM card to put in your phone. You can just basically download a SIM card and call it installed. And so selecting eSIMs, the eSIM world, in my opinion, is changing every 5 minutes. So it's a good idea it is a good idea to ask, I guess, and be up to date on what's available. There's a couple of good countries. Airolo is one that we've been using for the last little while, and it's worked really well. They are often just digital data SIMs, though, so you lose your phone number and you just have data. But we'll do often is we'll use things like WhatsApp. And if there's a number of people using the SIM cards, then you can talk to each other on WhatsApp, make a voice call. So, but SIM cards are one.
One of the ways we communicate when we're on the cruise with everybody is with WhatsApp. So we make a WhatsApp group and we invite everyone to be part of the WhatsApp group. So that's something we started doing on the Caribbean cruise. And we're going to actually create the WhatsApp group for the Mediterranean cruise before we leave home, because it's way easier. Because one of the things that if you don't have WhatsApp, it sends you a text to click to sign up and join. And so a couple people weren't able to do that because they had the eSIMs on and they didn't have access to their home phone numbers. So anyway, we learned from that.
Yeah. So I see Wet Coaster's asking in the chat about power adapters. Yeah, and we don't get a lot of questions about power adapters, but basically there's the North American style and the European style, and then English is same voltage as European but different plugs. What you'll find is a lot of almost everything we travel with now is things like computers and chargers for our phones and everything. They'll say 110, 220 like on the side of the thing. Now it may have a North American plug on it, but if it says 110, 220, then typically they can be plugged directly into a European style. So all you need is a converter. It doesn't have to change the voltage. All it needs to do is change the plug style, and then you can plug those types of things into European plugs. Most of the Holland America has primarily North American style plugs on the ships. So it'll depend on the cruise line as to what type of plugs are prevalent. We just, on the last one we did.
The Danube had North American plugs too.
The Danube had North American plugs.
Yeah.
The last one we did on Princess, they had a mix of North American and European plugs on the ship.
I would suggest packing a small power strip if you need to plug in multiple things that you can plug in your adapters into and then plug that into.
It's a good idea, but if you're going to do that, you should also check, particularly if you're going to be cruising. Some cruise lines actually, that's verboten in the rooms.
Yeah.
Oh.
They don't want you to bring irons. Yeah. They don't want you to bring your own iron or a steamer for clothes. And
some hair dryers. And some won't allow hair dryers.
And then your power bars, they don't want you to bring power bars. So you check on the cruise line's website to see if something that you think you're going to bring is not allowed.
Another thing to
they
check
have
on.
Hair dryers in the cabins, in the bathrooms. They have those, and there's irons, like there's laundry rooms, and you can go get an iron if you need to iron some.
One of the things, speaking of the plug outlet styles, Subway Mark says power strips are not allowed on Royal Caribbean cruises. So there you go, a little pro tip from Subway Mark. My recent trip to the UK, we had adapters, power adapters. So, just, it doesn't change the voltage because, as Chris said, all my electronics were 110/220. So I was like, I'm good. I just need to make sure I can actually plug it into the wall.
Right.
And we had a couple of adapters from the last time we were in the UK 20 years ago. The outlet style has changed in the UK in the last 20 years. So if you have an adapter that's like 20 years old, you might want to get a newer one because they've changed the actual configuration, and the old one doesn't actually physically fit anymore.
Oh, okay. Wow. That's interesting.
The
European ones are the same as they've been for quite a while. They're little round ones.
I bought a plug in Europe, and it was the kind that it was the one for Europe, and it was the kind I could put a USB into. And so I just had to buy that one plug, and then I could plug all my USB things into it.
Nice.
That way. And it was affordable. It was like $15 or something. It was really cheap.
Nice.
Lots of questions have been coming up.
Yeah, Doramore says, when I travel, I try to learn a few words in the native language. Greetings, thank yous, etc.
That's a great idea.
That's a good idea.
People are very forgiving if you screw up their language, if you just try. Mm-hmm. Learning to say thank you, even if it's just thank you or please and thank you, is worth its weight. Yeah. Toilet's another good one.
Yes.
Very handy, yeah.
And where's the library? Because that's what you learn the first thing in
that's so useful. I know.
¿Dónde está la biblioteca?
We had one from Carlo. He's wondering, when you're traveling, do you meet up with local cachers in the countries that you're visiting or attend events in those countries?
We do,
Yeah.
and we do attend events, and more often than not, if occasionally we'll set up an event, and what we usually, for us anyway, what we usually try and do is connect with the local cacher and get them to set it up, knowing that we're going to be there. One of the reasons we do that is because we live in a cruise town ourselves, Victoria, and there's obviously lots of cruise ships that come through here, and lots of cachers set up events in Victoria to say hi to the locals, and sometimes they just don't show up because the ship isn't able to get there, or they choose a dumb ASS place. They choose a dumb place that just doesn't make sense because they don't know the area, right? So working with a local, what we try and do to set up an event. Occasionally, though,
it's not as easy anymore, though. And when we went to Vienna, we hosted our own event because it was right outside the Johann Strauss Monument, and we knew we would be there because we were going to be there for 2 days before the cruise. But when we were going to Istanbul, we were going to hold an event, and at 2:00 in the afternoon on the day we were going to get into Istanbul. And the local guy, I asked him, I got a hold of local, and I said, would you please, be willing to host this event? And he said, host your own damn event.
Please feel empowered to do this yourself.
What happened was I kept trying to get on and get this event going, but I was having problems with data and internet beforehand on the trip, early on the trip. And then when we got to Bucharest, our 8 a.m. flight to Istanbul, we got bumped off of it, and we ended up not getting into Istanbul till like 6 or 7 at night. So I was really, really glad that we weren't hosting an event at 2:00 in the afternoon that day. I was like, oh, thank goodness I didn't manage to get that event in the queue, because we would have been the ones missing our own event. So, yeah. But yeah, we typically on cruises, a lot of our group will kind of take turns hosting events in ports at a central place, maybe near the pier or at a monument or something. And it's usually just a, half hour, 1 hour event.
We sometimes get locals coming to them.
We do. Locals come, other people on the ship that are geocachers, the people that are not part of our group, but they're just cachers on the cruise. They join in. People from other ships. Sometimes we get somewhere and there's like 3 ships in port, and we'll end up with people from, other ships coming and joining in our event. So we do get to meet other traveling cachers, not just our group when we hold events.
Well, sometimes we find them just at caches too. We found in Bahamas, we met a group of 4 that were just friends, and they were out geocaching, and they were actually on our ship, and we invited them to join us for the photo seminar. I do a photo seminar on board, just usually near the beginning of the trip, and
nice.
So join us for that.
Well, Landsharkz, thank you so much for joining us this evening and talking about the cruise. I know we've got a lot of people listening that are excited. I'm excited. If people wanted to get in contact with you, what's the best way to do it?
For the cruises and everything, go to travel.landsharkz.ca, and there's all kinds of contact information in there. And
we have a Landsharkz Geocaching Adventure Travels group on Facebook. You can find us there. And through landsharkz.ca, regular website, go there and hit connect.
Fantastic. Well, folks, thanks for tuning in this evening. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Caching in the Northwest.
Absolutely. And I want to take a moment to thank our guests tonight and also sponsors of ours, Landsharkz. Thank you very much. And also Gold Country Geotourism. Those are our corporate Denali level sponsors. Landsharkz, LANDSHARKZ.ca is the outdoor adventure and geocaching store. Check them out online. Remember, they're shipping those online orders daily. I think Helen's got to take off to go ship a bunch of orders right after we're done the podcast here, probably. But and for absolutely amazing geocaching adventures, check out exploregoldcountry.com and download the app. Plan your trip to Gold Country. Enjoy the geo tours. And folks, we want to thank all of our faithful Denali level supporters. That's the Landsharkz, Gold Country Geotourism, Team Squirrel, Groovy Owl, and Cashly, the geocaching app. If you want to know more about supporting this here show, well, head on over and click that Patreon link on the cachingnw.com a website.
Like B. Pendragon did.
And geocaches.
And Fairwood West.
Acker Doc.
UDAC.
Tick Magnet.
Keats, 94.
GSM times 2.
RE54321.
Boomer, 365.
Wet Coaster.
Seebeck Tribe.
Trexer.
Sega Hove.
Dora Moore.
Greenwords.
Skyhawker.
Limax.
GeoNav Pro.
Sprouter.
Al Robrick.
Antaeus.
CRS 98.
Great Cacher, Terrible Lunch, Gas Station Tuna.
Our newest supporter, RAR, 258. 285. That's it, 285. I
We're
just
not
have
sure
to
who you are, but thank you.
Thank you so much. And thanks to Team Noltex.
And Donners.
And Kid Vegas 19.
Just finding our way.
M-Nerve.
Wino Seattle.
Cattle Barb.
Log Work.
Korsgat.
MC3 Cats.
Subway Mark.
That's me. You talks to rocks.
Flagman.
Whidbey Island Gal.
Genies.
Peach of Washington.
Kev MacD.
Camp Clan.
LG 9000.
Kitty Quest.
And J-Car. You know, the list just keeps going. Sometimes I get lost in it because it's so long.
The longer it
thank
gets-
you
Off
all.
daydreaming.
Yeah.
Doo-doo-doo-doo. They'll tell
Longer
me
it
when it's
gets,
time
the
to talk.
easier it is to lose your place in there. So,
That's right.
thanks to all of them. Special thanks to Landsharkz for joining us live tonight. We loved having you.
Thanks.
Do you want to throw your website out one last time? Or, well, we
Travel.landsharkz.ca.
all right.
Love it. And thank you for taking the time to listen to this episode of Caching in the Northwest. Your support helps keep the quality shows coming. Now, if you like the show, click the Patreon link on the cachingnw.com website. If you didn't like the show, let us know what you want us to talk about. In either case, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and more. Subscribe and give us a review. Now, if you were in a restaurant, you would tip. If you were in a live audience, you would clap. But since you're on a podcast, leave us a free, fast, fabulous, fantastic 5-star review. You can also call into 253-693-TFTC and leave us a comment, ask us a question, or help us with a meetup at the side of a boat any time of the day or night. And of course, you can email us at feedback@cachingnw.com. Join us every Thursday night at 9 p.m. Pacific for a live show and chat. This show's produced by Chris Umpenauer, Jim Paulwitz, and Jay Kennedy. It's licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution 3.0 license. Copyright 2023 by Chris Umpenauer. And folks, I ask you to stay tuned for
The After Show.
Oh, that's it. The after show. We're in it.
Yay.
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 I think we only have two things. One from Keats. A new episode hits the tubes, the YouTubes, tomorrow at 5 a.m. Into the Unknown. Oh, wow. He's going to get up early and make sure that's done. I know that's what he's doing, manually loading it there. In this episode, I experiment with adding my own musical compositions to the soundtrack, another adventure into the woods.
Fine.
Well,
Very good.
Wits End, would you read one?
Oh, let's see. Part 2.
Oh, where's part 1? Maybe he didn't tag it for tasks.
Part 2 to the Weirdness in Paradise episode of Geocaching with Como Kino and the Kid will air tomorrow. Contains a Jack Hanby parody.
There you go.
Interesting.
Hmm.
And
Oh,
go
yeah,
ahead.
I was going to say, I thought the delayed pause was because it was my turn to read, and I'm just off
It definitely is.
in La La Land. All right. Well, Seebeck Tribe says, I've got 6 caches today and already got signal halfway out. Plus, grabbed 2 more WSGA Geo Tour caches in the Olympic Peninsula chapter.
Well done.
Geo Tour. Very good.
Fantastic.
Good job. I think if I'm not mistaken, right up early in the show, Seebeck Tribe said that they picked up a Landsharkz trading card in one of those
Yes.
caches.
oh, very cool.
Nice.
Yeah,
Very
we did one of the Olympic Peninsula Geo Tours and got started on a second one back on November, Remembrance Day long weekend.
Yeah.
Last fall.
We did that with Jay.
We did that with Jay and Laura, the Land Monkey.
We did part of it together anyways.
Part of it together. Well, we were down there separately and then did a little togetherness.
Indeed. It was fun. And then what was funny was it was totally unplanned. We're messaging each other about something unrelated. It's like, where are you? I'm 50 kilometers from where you are. That was fun.
That was good.
There you go. Got your geocaching card from the OP WSGA Geo Tour.
Good.
Very good.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need to get back down there.
Yeah, looking forward to that.
Talking about the YouTube videos, as a couple of the other folks were. If you want to learn about how to geocache for beer, my episode on that went live today. So
Geocache for beer.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Climax says, I got my Landsharkz trading card when I was doing the Lompoc Geo Tour.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool. That was, we enjoyed that.
That was cool.
Yeah.
That was nice.
there you
Long
go.
poke.
Lompoc.
As opposed to a short poke.
Lompoc.
Lompoc.
Yeah.
That was the NASA
NASA
themed one.
one down in Southern California.
Sometimes too was involved in that, I think, creating that one.
Very cool.
Yeah. It's a lovely part of the world.
Yeah. Great fun to explore.
What was the town we stayed in?
It was a Danish town.
Solvang.
Stolvang, that's it. Yeah.
Stolvang.
Thanks.
Really like that place. Yeah.
Yeah, that was kind of fun place to explore also.
The Hans Christian Andersen Park. Was that in Solvang?
I don't remember, but there's like an old Danish windmill and all kinds of like Danish bakery, Danish themed everything, and some of the architecture.
Yes, it's
old Danish.
It's Danish like Leavenworth, Washington is Bavarian.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Yeah. It's a whole town themed that way.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, folks, thank you so much for joining us. And until next week, get out and get caching in the Northwest.
Sounds like a